Yeah, I hear myself as well. I know that you all must be hungry. I'm very, very hungry right now, so I'm going to try to keep this quick. So the presentation is going to be about Firebase personalization. This is a new and exciting feature of Firebase. And yeah, my name is Deniz, and I'm from Turkey originally, but I've been living in Poland for the last 11 years, very happily. And I'm the founder of Ahoy Games. We are not a very well-known company, so I felt like I should introduce ourselves. So we are a team of 9 people. We are quite a small team, but like a very focused team. We are based in Warsaw, Poland. We make classical board games for mobile, right? And across all games, we have around 800,000 daily active users. And these are some of our games. This is like our oldest game. It's right now around 10 years old. And this is our newest game, the Genome Legends. And an interesting fact on the bottom is that we heard about Firebase for the first time on the 2nd edition of GameCamp. And after hearing about it, we went back to office and did the integration. So GameCamp is pretty useful, and we are very thankful. So again, just to give you a better idea of what we do, I wanted to show you the trailer video of our latest game, Genome Legends. So here we go. Okay, I hope you like it. Oh, thank you. Okay, okay, I have a question. How many of you know what is Firebase remote config, or how many of you use it? Okay, I assume more or less everyone, so that's great. But I still felt like explaining like a bit of the basics here, just to have like a recap. So basically, Firebase remote config allows you to define some variables, and you set values to these variables. And from your application, you fetch these variables, and based on the value, you can change the behavior of the application, right? So you can change the reward you give, for example, instead of 5 coins, you can give 10 coins, etc. And after you release the application, when you change the values, the change in values are reflected live, right? Not in real time, but like the next time someone launches the app, the newest values are fetched. And one cool thing is that you can actually define conditions based on app version, user's country, and many, many more conditions. There are right now, like I think 10 or 15 different conditions that you can use. So I want to talk about like a theoretical scenario. Let's assume that we build a rewarded ad offer pop-up, right? You watch an ad, you get some free coins. We have like a beautiful looking green button. And just for the theory's sake, let's assume that we have this green guy over here, and he's the kind of person, he sees green, he clicks it. Like there's no questioning, right? He's like in love with green. And we have the guy who likes blue, he sees blue, he clicks it. I am personally that blue guy. I'm a big fan of blue, as you guys see. And we assume that this green square represents the green button that's in that picture, right? And we, again, just for the theory's sake, we assume that we have 10 users. You can multiply these numbers by 100, by 1,000, doesn't matter. We do this dialog, we release it to all users. And because of the distribution of our users and their preferences, we basically see here that 4 out of 6, like, 4 out of 10, sorry, this is a typo there. So 4 out of 10 users click the button, right? And this means that we have a 40% conversion ratio, which is great. But of course, we want to do better. So what do? We do an alternative of this button, a blue button, and we decide to run an A/B test, right? So again, how does an A/B test work? Let's assume that we, again, do like a perfect 50-50 uniform split of the audience, right? 5 users on the control group side, 5 users are on the test group side. And as we see here, just because in each group, actually, thanks to the uniform split, we have actually more users that prefers blue. We actually get 60% conversion ratio on the blue button side, right? So this is amazing because blue wins in the A/B test. We roll out the blue variant to all users, and this is how it looks, which I think looks better than the green variant. And this actually reflects to our revenue directly. We have 50% more ad revenue right now, right? But we actually should be doing better because in this case, now the users who likes blue, they are very happy, they're clicking, but you fully gave up on the users who actually likes green, who clicks green, and they're not happy anymore. And ultimately, this is not what we want. This is what we want, right? We want to go for 100% conversion ratio. So this is where the Firebase personalization comes in. This is a somewhat new feature. Did you guys know about the Firebase predictions feature or use it in the past? Okay, so there was a feature called Firebase predictions some years ago. Now this is a defunct feature. It's not available anymore. And this Firebase personalization is an evolution of that feature, right? So basically, it is using machine learning to try to identify these blue and green users based on data, right? And it evolves the predictions in time as your users' preferences change, or your audience change, or the app changes because you might be doing changes in the app as well, right? And it actually tries to achieve 100% conversion goal. I mean, of course, this is impossible because in reality, there are no users that will see blue and always click, right? And we were lucky to be selected as one of the participants in the closed beta of the Firebase personalization. So this feature we have been using like for the last 1.5 years already, something like that. Okay, so how does it work? Like at a very basic level, it starts by randomly serving variants to the users, right? So it's randomly assigns like green, blue, green, blue, green, blue. And then it keeps doing this for some amount of time to collect data to understand what makes a green user green, what makes a blue user blue, right? And with that data, it builds a machine learning model. And then later it starts using that machine learning model to serve the correct variant to the users, right? And technically, you should go for the 100% conversion rate. But as I said before, in reality, you will never achieve this, right? So one important thing is that once it serves a variant to a user, it sticks to that choice for a minimum of 24 hours. I'm going to come back to that later because that's very important. And because it builds this machine learning model based on data, more analytics events you have, more data you can feed it, the better machine learning model it will create, right? And it's not just about the quantity of the analytics events, it also matters like the quality of these analytics events, how meaningful they are, right? Yeah, so one sad thing is that machine learning models are essentially black boxes, right? So there is no way to tell later on, like after building the model, what exactly it decides on to determine that someone likes green or the blue button, right? I wish there was a feature like that, but there isn't. So each personalization as well has like a goal, like your target, let's say. It can be simply increasing the total number of, total count of some analytic event being triggered, right? Such as games started, or in the previous example, ad rewarded watched, right? Rewards that watched. Or increasing the sum of value parameter of a custom analytics event, or user engagement time, or ad impressions and clicks. So there is one more important thing. So as I said, it starts, like when you start a personalization, it initially starts by randomly serving variants to users, right? This is called exploration. And this is necessary because it needs to collect data, right? And one interesting thing is that it forever actually keeps doing this, even after it builds the machine learning model, because it uses that to actually evolve the machine learning model, right? And there are two concepts. One is like exploration, like randomly serving a variant. And another one is exploitation. Exploitation, sorry, that's a bit hard to pronounce for me. So exploitation is using the trained ML model to determine which variant to serve, right? And what happens is that when you start an experiment, it starts initially with 100% exploration. And in some time, this could be a week or two or like a few months, depending on how much data you feed it, it's going to slowly start transitioning to exploitation of the machine learning model it generated. And it's still going to forever keep some exploration, just so that it can evolve the machine learning model. And also it can use this exploration to actually calculate the total lift the personalization gives you, right? As in, like, you do 10% better than you would do without personalization. That's quite important to know. And thanks to exploration, actually, this is very important, Firebase Personalization ends up being like a complete maintenance-free system. You start it and then you do nothing. There's nothing to do, absolutely. So this was a part of the case study that we had. This is some experiment that we started, like, I think, when we started participating in the beta test. So we had in our Backgammon Legends game, we have a piggy bank feature, and we made 4 variants of the break button. So break, open it with some extra coins, green break with coins, open it with extra coins. So now these are the results, right? Value 1 here, the colors are not that visible, but yeah, so value 1 here is that one, value 2 is that, etc. So one important thing here when looking at this is that so this is the result of the exploitation, right? And these are the results of exploration data, like randomly serving, and how well they convert. But it will, of course, serve this to, let's say, 10,000 users, this to 1,000 users. So technically, the data of this is not 69K, it's 6.9 thousand. But it actually multiplies this by 10 because it is actually a scaled value, basically, right? So basically, just to sum it up, we can completely head-to-head compare these values, right? So when we look here at the actual results, so baseline, okay, let's start at value 1, because before we started personalization, we had only the variant on the most left, and that did 69,000 clicks on the break button, and value 2 did 86,000 clicks, value 3 did 90,000, value 4 86,000. And one important thing is that if we were to do an A/B test, here the value 3 would win, right? Because that would convert the best, we would apply that. But personalization actually managed to do 93,000 because it knows that there are some people that actually prefers that red button, even though the graphics are the same. Or maybe all the way on the left because they like simpler designs, right? It figures this out and actually gives us a 3.3% better result than how we would do with an A/B test. And it forever evolves these results. And this is something super nice. And this total uplift that it actually calculates, and this can be seen like on the most left there, this basically compares baseline with the personalized group. And baseline is the average of all the variants served via exploration. I know that it might be kind of hard to somewhat interpret this right now, but it's still closed beta. Maybe before they go fully public, they might actually change the visuals of this. Okay, so another thing I would like to show. Yeah. So in our Rumi Club game, we have a feature after the game starts, after we deal tiles to the player, you can watch a video ad and you can deal the tiles again. And we had the idea of experimenting with the timer because it actually gives you this offer and you had like 15 seconds, start counting down from 15. If it reaches 0, you don't have that offer anymore. It will just give you like some time pressure. And initially we had the remote config of that, just hoping that we are going to do an A/B test. And then when we participated in the beta, we decided to connect personalization to this. And we basically did like a 2 basic variants, right? Like 12 seconds, like shorter countdown, and 18 seconds, which feels a bit more generous in terms of the time the player has. And the results here are very interesting. So comparing to an A/B test, we did actually 8.3% better. And comparing to randomly serving the variants, we did 12% better. And this 8.3% was achieved without us doing anything, right? Simply reading a remote config value, starting this up, and it forever evolves. And this will adapt to any changes in the users. If we change the app, if we change the variants, etc., if we change how this dialogue is presented, in time, it's going to completely adapt. And it was the easiest thing to set up as well, and you are going to see how easy it is to set this up. So next. So okay, how to set this up? You basically fetch a remote config value, and you add that remote config to Firebase interface, and you come up with potential variants for this. You should try to keep the variant count to like 5 or less, I would say, just so that each variant has more data, right? Again, I would say the requirements are just the same as an A/B test. There is like no difference. And I would say probably most of your apps right now is ready for a personalization experiment. Like there is no like extra thing to add on your client side, let's say. So this is how you create the personalization. This is the edit page of the remote config, right? There is an add condition button there. You click that, and there is a personalization there. You click that, and yeah, then you enter like the variants, like values of the variants, right? And then you choose an objective. And so this is what you want to increase the count of, right? Like a certain event. Or here you could also define, for example, the total engagement time or the ad impressions or whatever. In case of our game, we have like a custom event called add reward at start. And we set that as the objective. And we want to optimize for the total count of those events, right? Like more someone watches, the better. And you can also add some additional metrics. These are only for tracking. They don't have effect on the like machine learning model at all. We also want to start if people play more games or less games. Like we want to track, sorry. And then you create a condition. This is a requirement at this time, but I would say it's like quite a good and sensible requirement. Because the moment you create a condition, you can actually add this condition, which is called user and random percentage, right? And you can set this to something like 20%. This allows you to start using personalization with like a small set of users, and then scale and scale and scale as you get more confident in its decisions, let's say. So then you just give it a name and description, and that's it. You are done, basically. So at this point, all you do is every now and then, like I would recommend once a week or so, you open the remote config page, there is a personalization tab there, you click it, you just check the results, and you never end it, you never apply it unlike an A/B test. There is no like end to it. It forever runs, it's forever active. And one important thing is that you need to give it time before judging the results, right? Because a day or two after it starts, it might still give you the results. But those results might not be good. So you want to wait at least like 2 or 3 weeks before judging, right? So the stickiness window, at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned this. So stickiness window is the amount of time when a variant is served to a user, that user gets that same variant, right? It doesn't go from green, blue every time someone launches the app. Instead, it actually sticks to its decision of like which variant to serve for 24 hours, and this is per user, right? And this cannot be overridden at this time. And one like set thing is that because of this, you cannot exactly use you shouldn't use personalization for certain things, such as, for example, controlling the user interface layout of your app, right? Because then like the play button that you have in your main menu, let's say in one layout, it's on the left, in other one, it's on the right. You don't want that switching for like an individual user because people like their UI layouts not to change that much. That's been my experience at least. So here on the bottom, I try to make like a, let's say, a visualization of a individual user's potential journey across time. So as we see, for example, when a new user comes in, it decides to use that user for exploration for a while. So it serves it green, it serves it blue, it serves it green, just to collect data. And then later it actually builds a machine learning model together with like the data that came from other users. And then it decides that, okay, this user is a user that likes blue. Great. So at day 6, it actually builds a new machine learning model. And this model now tells that this user actually likes green, right? So then it builds a new one, it likes blue, and it can like flip this way, right? So this is something very, very important to keep in mind because you shouldn't use this for things that you don't want changing every 24 hours, basically, in your app, right? Okay, so when is the perfect fit and when it's not? So I would recommend that you should use A/B tests, like as I said, when you don't want users switching from variant to variant. So I would say core in-app purchase package pricing, you don't want these changing. Users might actually blame you for cheating them, let's say, because they paid $100 for something, and then next day it becomes $10. Not a good idea. Or you don't want to toggle a feature on and off, right? Because some users engaging with a feature, let's say, 2 days later, that feature toggles off and gets invisible. You also don't want that. And I would also recommend against using personalization for early one-off experiences, such as first-time user experience, because those experiences are triggered at a time when the Firebase has very little info about that user outside of his country, basically. And because of that, you cannot exactly make a decision if that user is better for that variant or better for that variant, right? And also, you might want to go for an A/B test if you cannot generate enough data for machine learning model. So this could be caused by two things. Either you have like too few users in total, or you have too little usage of that RC value, right, for that remote config value. In which case you will not be generating enough data for the machine learning model. And I would say you should totally use personalization. If switching from variant to variant, it doesn't matter. And actually, in certain cases, I would say that this would be better for the end user, right? For example, think of like in-app purchase visuals. If it changes every time, like every 24 hours for a single user, this actually gives variety for that user and maybe keeps that user coming back, right? Or like the offer, like in-app purchase offer items or the pricing or timing. I think this is like a great use case for personalization. And another thing that you could experiment with, which we did not so far, using it, for example, for ad frequency, right? Like for interstitial ad frequency. Because again, none of your users will notice this changing from day to day, right? And especially if you make it so that variants are not so different than each other, then no one is going to notice. And another great use case, I would say, for personalization is if among your team members, if there are strong opinions, but like different ones, right? So let's say you have 10 people in your team, 4 of it says, no, I really love the blue button. Other 6 says, no, I really love the green one. Okay, that's actually exactly the example I showed. Perfect use case for personalization, right? And so yeah, Firebase personalization is a maintenance-free, machine learning fueled continuous auto segmentation system. Yeah, that's my summary for it. And it evolves its segmentation predictions in time completely automatically. And you set it up, I would recommend waiting 14 days. And if there's a positive lift, you just go have drinks, party, celebrate, nothing else to do. And currently, it should be available for all completely for free in public beta. And you can have your blue users and green users happy at the same time. And yeah, that's it from me. Any questions?